Since March 1st, the Atlanta Hawks have been playing some of the best basketball in the league. For that stretch, they've had a better record than the Brooklyn Nets, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Utah Jazz. How the fuck is this possible?
Get your ball on.
Doug Collins, the first coach of Michael Jordan. Well, all we could say was that he was leaning on Michael Jordan. Why does this matter? The same thing was with Lloyd Pierce. Lloyd Pierce, we saw the numbers that Trey put up last year, 30-9 All-Star starter. He was playing great basketball, but Lloyd Pierce, he was leaning on Trae Young tremendously to make him to make every play, take every shot. It won him some games, obviously didn't make the playoffs. Why does this matter? Because the new Hawks head coach, Nate McMillan, does not go with that same scheme. And it's been winning him games. Obviously, they're 18-6 since he took over as head coach. Now, Trey this season, his numbers starting off the season were similar to last season. 27 points, 9.5 assists, 42% from the field, and 18 attempts. But now, even though it doesn't look like he's changed much, he's getting less touches per game. And this has actually been great for the team because the two players that were the most disappointing on the Atlanta Hawks to this point were Bogdan Bogdanovic and Danilo Gallinari. When they brought up these two people in general in free agency last season, people were like, okay, the Hawks should be a playoff team. Well, we all know they didn't start out like that. Lloyd Pierce started off the season with the Hawks with a 44 win percentage. Not even in the playoffs. In the weak-ass East. Nate McMillan takes over as head coach, and all of a sudden, the Hawks are fourth in the East, playing amazing basketball and went on multiple win streaks through that period. Why it is so important for Bogdan Bogdanovic and Danilo Gallinari to step up is because they were expected to get big minutes this year, and they have. But in the beginning of the season, they were disappointing to say the least. Bogdan Bogdanovic only averaged 10 points per game, shooting terribly from the field to start the season. Right now, he's averaging 16 points per game with over league average efficiency. And shit, he's improved a lot. Same thing goes for Danilo Gallinari. This man to start the season was stinking it up. 11 points, 3 rebounds on pretty bad efficiency. And right now, he's at 16 points and 5 rebounds. Shooting great from 3, the line, and even from the field. Improved a lot. We all knew this is the Danilo Gallinari that they needed. Danilo, his whole career has been a good either bench player or a solid starter that can either get you to 15 to 20 points a game. He wasn't even getting half of that when he was just starting in Atlanta. Now for Trae Young, maybe this isn't the best because Trae Young missed the All-Star game this season. I doubt he's going to miss it next season. But, I mean, he's not going to be putting up 30 and 9 consistently now just because the offense is a lot more integrated. However, though, the team has improved drastically. And before the Nate McMillan hiring, the Hawks had a 44 win percentage, like I said, this season. And right now, over the past couple games, they've upped that win percentage, and we knew what came with it. They're shooting damn near 40% from 3, and they're shooting 48% from the field. That is a field goal percentage of some of the best offenses in the league, like Portland and Denver. Now, why did Nate McMillan change this so much? Lloyd Pierce, yes, he relied on Trae Young heavily, but he was one of those grit and grindy coaches that would just be in your face. And the problem with that is that we saw something like this happen earlier last year. Kyrie and KD weren't even playing last year. They were both hurt, but they wanted Kenny Atkinson fired. Kenny Atkinson was one of the top coaches in the league, like a top 15 coach at the time, and they just fired him. Why did they do that? Because Kenny Atkinson was one of them hard-nosed coaches. Yell at you, get you to come in practice on holidays. You know, a gritty coach that'd be great for a young team, but for superstars, it frankly just doesn't work. This league is now ran by the players. You won't see players just accepting the fact that their coach is going to be hostile like Tim Duncan did with Greg Popovich. That is not going to happen anymore unless you have a very young team. So that's the same thing that happened with Lloyd Pierce. Lloyd Pierce had a very similar coaching style as Kenny Atkinson. And Kenny Atkinson, right now, who knows how much better Brooklyn could be, considering that Steve Nash is not half the coach that Kenny Atkinson was. Yet the biggest thing in this whole Nate McMillan experiment was that he was like a Phil Jackson. Not Phil Jackson as in a great coach. He's a solid one. But Phil Jackson in how he treats his players. Phil Jackson, we even saw in the documentary, he let Dennis Rodman skip practice and stuff like that. As long as on game day, that Dennis Rodman will show up. And Dennis Rodman did. This league is now run by players' coaches and not just hostile coaches anymore. Even though Lloyd Pierce is the type of coach that I like, when you get them busting their ass, it simply doesn't work in this league anymore. If we look at the most winning franchises over the past decade, we can just look at last year's champion, LeBron James, and you know who was coaching him? Frank Vogel, who's a player's coach. He's not as good as Greg Popovich, but he does have a different coaching style than Greg Popovich. The team that won 3 championships in this era, Steve Kerr's Golden State Warriors. Steve Kerr is one of those player coaches too. He understands everybody, and he's not hostile. And of course, maybe one of the most winningest coaches this decade that is not Steve Kerr, Erik Spoelstra. Erik Spoelstra is a great coach, and he's not hostile at all. He got 2 rings in Miami this decade, and he's been making the finals too. Like, this man, Erik Spoelstra, yes, he's had some insane talent on his team, but he's been beating Greg Popovich-led teams, some of these great coach-led teams.